Hi everyone, my name is Maddie, welcome back to my channel and welcome to this video where I'm going to be wrapping up all of the books I read in January, and there were quite a few. So I really kicked 2022 off with a bit of a bang. I read so much more than I anticipated. For anyone that doesn't know, my goal for the year was 36 books with a view to reading a book a week with some leeway, so 3 books a month. I read a lot more than that in January. We're gonna kick off with some stats and then do some overall thoughts for the month, and then I guess get into reviews of each of the books, though I'll try and keep it quite short because we do have a lot to get through. So starting the stats, I did read a total of 13 books in January, which is madness, and that adds up to a total of 4,329 pages, which I think puts this at near enough, I think it's my 3rd best ever reading month, only beaten by March of last year and I think June the year before that. So cannot complain. It's better than pretty much any reading month ever, near enough. And that works out as 140 pages a day, which is so far above what I would have imagined I'd managed to do, and an average book length of 333, which will make sense in a minute. Just because I find it interesting, my best reading day of the entire month, I read 503 pages, and the worst day that I did actually read on, I read 8 pages, but throughout the month there were only 4 out of 31 days where I didn't read anything, which I'm pretty happy with, and that was my very first week back on site for work. So I was just too tired, trying to get back into the life of being on site, and it just didn't happen. But I think that will be much less the case going forwards because I'm getting much more used to reading up on site again. So I am not mad at any of that at all. Very, very happy. It all worked out beautifully. Then some stats regarding the actual content I was reading, starting with genre. I did have 4 fantasy books, 3 dystopian books, 3 speculative kind of fabulism books, 2 romances and 1 contemporary, which isn't quite a romance. So good bit of variety. Really happy to start seeing things like fantasy and dystopian and speculative coming back in after the massive reading slump of 2021 where I couldn't read anything that wasn't romance. Really exciting that that's starting to make its way back into my reading, but that I'm still also reading a lot of romance and stuff just because it's a good time. And then the one other thing I really track is star ratings, and just to make this clear, I will put, as I go through each book, the actual star rating I gave up on the screen, but when I'm doing my stats, I do round, so if something gets a 3.5, that gets classed within the 3 for this, so I only do whole star stat ratings. And that leaves me with 4 5-star reads, 5 4-star reads, 3 3-star reads, 1 DNF, and 1 which I didn't rate, which I'll explain why when we get to it. So overall, fantastic reading month. I truly made myself laugh in the variety, especially of length of book I was reading. I had a good chunk in the middle of the month where I pretty much alternated between 350 pages plus, under 100, 350 pages plus, under 150. I just did these vast differences between book, novella, and it was a great time. Wasn't intentional, but it was amusing. I will just really quickly say I don't normally talk about books I DNF'd, but the book I DNF'd, I haven't actually got it with me because I've not bothered, is All My Friends Are Rich by Michael Serres. Really upset I DNF'd this. This was a contemporary book which Steph had recommended to me and I thought I would love, and both me and my mum went to read it. She, I think, ended up finishing it. I just decided I wasn't interested. About 100 out of 300 pages in, I had no interest in it, and so I've decided to DNF it. You never know, might give it another go one day, but I don't think so. But getting into the books that I did actually read, we are starting with The Song Rising by Samantha Shannon. So this is the 3rd book in the Bone Season series by Samantha Shannon. I started reading, or rereading, I suppose, the Bone Season at roughly the middle of December. It was a completely spur of the moment pick. I think it was actually end of December. Completely spur of the moment, and then I just powered through and read the entirety of the series. So The Song Rising I got to early this year. I wanted to finish it before the end of last year, but I just didn't manage it. So finished it off, I think, within the first couple days of 2022. This I gave 4.5 stars. It was so close to being a 5, as were most of the books in the Bone Season series, but it just didn't quite make it yet. The Bone Season series, for anyone wondering, is a dystopian series following a slightly futuristic sort of our world set in London mainly. I think we're set in around 2059-ish. And we are in a world where clairvoyance is a thing. but it is outlawed. It is completely illegal. And we are following Paige Marnie. I always hear everyone say Mahoney, and I thought I'd gone mad because I know that name's normally said Marnie, and it actually says in the book at one point it is Marnie, so I'm not mad, but it feels very weird because everyone says Mahoney. But we're following Paige, who is part of a syndicate in London of basically a group of clairvoyants who are in effect committing crimes because that's the way to survive, and they're trying to hide from being discovered. And I'm not going to say any more than that because I personally didn't know more than that and really enjoyed it. It was not remotely what I expected for a book, but it was fantastic. I can't say too much for the third book. To be honest, I can't say much for the next few I'm going to read because it's all going to be this series, and obviously I don't want to spoil anything, but this was fantastic. This is where, like, the emotion starts really hitting, like the characters start getting traumatized, things start happening, and it was just a good old time. I had a great time with it. I'm gonna move straight on to the second book I read, which is The Dawn Chorus, which is the novella between books 3 and book 4 of this series, and it was amazing. As I said, it follows directly on from book 3. And oh my god, it's actually such a hard read. As I said, book 3 is the one where like you start to see trauma happening. And so this little novella is very much like the ramifications of that and people dealing with it. And everyone always says like, oh, it's really cute, it's really domestic. It is, but it's also so sad and there's so much happening. But nonetheless, fantastic. Was the first thing in this series to just knock over to 5 stars for me. I absolutely adored it. I want to reread it, but I don't want to hurt myself, so I'm not going to. And then, unsurprisingly, the third book I read in the month was The Mask Falling, the 4th book in the Bone Season series. Oh my lordy me. If you want to see a lot of my thoughts on this, completely non-spoilery, I will link the vlog I did. This was the first book I read pretty much in that vlog. Well, the end of this series was the first ones I was reading. And the first like half hour of that vlog is just me dying over this book repeatedly. Oh my god, it killed me in every way conceivable. I was crying, I was shocked, I didn't know what to do with myself. It was phenomenal. I cannot wait for the rest of this series. Everything about this was masterful, and yes, I didn't 5-star the first couple books in this series. However, all of the character work and plot and world building happening in those books is so intrinsic and important when you get to book 3 and 4, so by god is it worth it. I'm gonna keep those reviews super short and leave it there because I really don't want to risk spoiling anything, because I think one of my favourite things about this series was going in completely blind. But yes, amazing. I love them. I cannot wait for books 5 through 7. And I know it's going to be quite a wait, and it may kill me. Next up, I read A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This is a really fun retelling, reimagining of like Dracula's brides, and it is queer, which is good fun. So 2 of the brides are female and 1 is male, which is really good fun, all a bit of, you know, queerness going on. And you're following one of the brides really closely, Constanta, who basically is telling the story of how and why she killed Dracula. So good, so interesting. It's a really short little book. It's only like 240-ish pages, but this was phenomenal. The writing style was what a lot of people may say is really overwritten and unnecessarily dramatic. I personally loved it for exactly those reasons. I thought it was stunning and gothic and moody and beautiful. The characters were fantastic. The plot was so interesting. The setting was definitely one I've never read of before. Kind of, I don't even know what century, but a long time ago, and it spans actually a really long time period, so you're seeing things evolve, and that's really, really interesting. Again, I don't want to say too much because it's so short, so I don't want to spoil anything, but this is absolutely phenomenal, and the amount of character depth and emotion that S.T. Gibson managed to cover in such a short book, genuinely very impressive. I ended up giving this a 4.5 star. Wasn't quite a 5 for me, but was incredibly close. I think I've mentioned in vlogs and stuff already this year that I am using Corpile this year, so my ratings are kind of going off that. I do use it with a pinch of salt and rate things how I feel is appropriate, but this one I was torn between 4 and 5, so not remotely surprising that Corpile spat it out at a 4.5. Next up were 3 books I read most of on a big intense reading day, which I have also vlogged if you want to watch that and see my thoughts as I went through them. The first I read was In Deeper Waters by F.T. Lukens. This is a really fun, like, YA kind of pirate vibe. It's slightly fantastical, but not like full out fantasy. Kind of feels more historical. But you're following this, I don't know anyone's names, do I? You're following Tal, that's who it is, who is going on like his coming of age tour. He's in the royal family, and that's what you do when you reach a certain age. And he's doing this tour, and they meet this other boy who they save from a shipwreck, and then this boy vanishes. And it's all very interesting, it's very magical, there's lots of bits of myth and magic tied into this. It is really interesting, there's definitely politics, there's definitely a big mystery going on which we're trying to figure out. It is a good time, it is very, very queer, which is always a big win. However, I didn't absolutely love this. It was a good read, it was a 3.5, but it didn't do as much for me as I hoped it would. This is the kind of book which I was really hoping would end up being like a new favourite for me, and it just wasn't quite that, unfortunately. But it was a good time. The cover is still one of the most stunning things I've ever seen in my life, and I love it a lot. I would recommend this. It is a lot of people's, like, one of their favourite books of last year, or it made their favourites list pretty quickly, so I seem to be the anomaly in not absolutely adoring this. But it was a good time. It was a good, fun, quick read, and was exactly what I needed at the time. Continuing that intense reading day, I read Where the Drowned Girls Go, which is book 7, I think. I keep losing count, but I think it's book 7 of the Wayward Children series, and oh, I love it. I mean, the sheer fact that I'm up to book 7 and I read these every year when they come out, and I have been doing so since book 3. I read book 1 and 2 just before book 3 came out, and so I've been waiting for the releases of these for like 4 years now. Like, I am invested in this series. This got 4.5 stars, wasn't my favourite of the Wayward Children books, but was definitely a really strong contender. I won't say too much about this one in particular because obviously it's book 7, but as a basic overview for this series, this is following kind of similar stories to things like Alice in Wonderland and Narnia. It is following children who find a door and go through it to some other world, and that world is like the perfect world for them. What that looks like is completely different for everyone, but that is why these worlds have kind of chosen these children. But we are following them once they've come back from this world. They're back in our world and no one believes them, and you know, why would they? They don't know this is a thing that can happen. And these kids are sent to Eleanor West's home for wayward children, I think, and basically it's helping them come to terms with the fact that they are back in this world. The books tend to alternate, so books 1, 3, 5, and 7 are set mainly in our world, and books 2, 4, and 6 are us experiencing one of the worlds that these kids have gone to. So loads of variety in the series, they're all really queer. This was a really dark take compared to the previous ones, and actually features a school other than Eleanor West, which was really, really interesting to see, with the vibes being completely different. But this was a good time, very different vibes. I really enjoyed it. I wonder if there's going to be some kind of follow-on for some parts of this in future books, because there were certain things that were revealed or introduced that seem like they could do, but I don't know. I'm very intrigued to find out with the next one next year, as I am every time I finish one of these books. The final book I finished on that big reading day was Middlegame by Shauna Maguire. I had been reading this over the course of about 2 weeks, but I did finish it on that day, and this was a reread for me. This is one of my favourite books of all time, and this is actually the book I had left unrated because I wasn't rereading this to re-rate it, and I had a bit of a struggle with this. You can see pretty clearly the tabs just stop about 2/3, 3/4 of the way through. This was an unfortunate situation. If I read the first 300 pages, was loving it like no tomorrow, and then I had to go to work for the week, and this was the week I read nothing, and I just didn't read this all week, and then by the time I had to come to pick it back up, I was kind of done. I was like, I've been reading this for over a week, I'm kind of bored of it, I'm kind of tired. I don't really want to be reading this right now, but I also want to finish it, because if I don't do it now, I never will. So it really interrupted my reread, which was frustrating, but you know, life happens. And as a result of all of that, it just meant that my enjoyment got impacted. So the first, 300 pages were still a solid 5-star favourite book ever, and then the last 200 were slightly less so. So I've not re-rated this because it would be a really unfair rating on the book. This is still one of my favourite books. I am so hyped for the sequel coming out this year. It was just an unfortunate reading experience. But for anyone that doesn't know about Middlegame, I forgot to do a synopsis. This is a really interesting book about alchemy and magic and family and platonic relationships. There's a lot of aspects in this, but the overall vibe is there's this alchemist who has noticed that you can basically get like the entirety of the universe to manifest in people. But to do this, you have to make two people who are like halves of a whole, a set of twins. And you are following said set of twins, Roger and Dodger. They are in many ways opposites to each other, but they are also each other's perfect counterparts due to the fact of their creation. It's all absolutely fascinating and really interesting. It is dark, it is gruesome, it is just great. Like, Seanan McGuire is a fantastic writer. I love all of her writing. It's a fantastic book. It's so interesting. Like, I'm still not sure I fully understand the ending, though I understand it way more this time than I did the first time I read it. It's great. It's a good time. I highly, highly recommend it. The next book I read was a little itty-bitty 80-page novella, and that is Odd Spirits by S.T. Gibson. This is a really fun, magical kind of book. So this is following two people who are both interested in magic and both have their own forms of practicing magic. And they are, you know, a married couple, a man and a woman. And it's really cool because you're seeing two timelines here. You're seeing them away into their marriage where things are seeming to go a bit wrong, which they don't know why. And you're also seeing when they first met, which is really interesting. It's a good time. It's only, you know, teeny tiny 80 pages. But again, S.T. Gibson, how she gets so much character growth and emotion into such a short format, I do not know, but it's really damn impressive. So I had a fantastic time with this. I gave this 4 stars, maybe 4.5? 4, I had to check my list. I gave this 4 stars. I had a really, really fun time with it. I truly did just really enjoy it. And I cannot wait to read more from S.T. Gibson. I'm reading another one next week and I'm hyped. It was just a really good time. It was just a really, really good time. The one warning I would put, which I have put in the other vlog I spoke about this for, is biphobia. There is an instance of biphobia in this book. It is not, from my personal opinion, it's not that bad. It is a genuine lack of understanding and seeking to learn, and that is manifesting in resentment versus like inherent hatred or biphobia. So I obviously up to you whether you're comfortable, but for me personally, I didn't think it was like bad. It was just a thing that's worth knowing in case it's something you're uncomfortable reading. But yes, it's a good time. Please read some S.T. Gibson if you've not. It's fantastic. The next book I read was an arc sent to me by Harper360, and that was Squire, which is a graphic novel. This is really fun. It's a fantasy YA graphic novel. I ended up giving it like 3.5 stars, so it was a good read. It wasn't a great read. I will fully 100% admit I think part of that was due to the fact that the arc is only partially in colour. So the first 20 or so pages are in gorgeous, gorgeous colour with all these different like beautiful colour schemes, and then the rest of the book is in black and white, which inherently not a problem. I read a lot of black and white because I read manga. However, as you can see, for example, on this page, it's so dark you can't actually really see what's going on because it's not designed to be printed in black and white. When manga is written, it's obviously designed to be printed in black and white, and so it's really clear. So unfortunate, I do think it impacted my rating and my enjoyment, but it's the format I was given to read, so I kind of had to just go with it. But this is a fun story following a girl who is from like an almost outcast group of society, and she really wants to almost rise above her station and she wants to become a squire. And the way to do this is to go basically into a training camp, train, and the top few are picked to be a squire, the rest are just sent to the front lines as soldiers. And, you know, it's really good fun. She's massively determined. She's really just a really interesting character. A lot of the character relationships and the commentary on like racial divides and things like that and cultural divides was fascinating in this book, and kind of people making sacrifices one way or another to protect themselves or others. It was just really quite a good time. But it did read to me very YA, which is not a criticism, but it did, I think, slightly limit my enjoyment. I would have liked a few of these things to be gone into in slightly more depth. But it was good. No real complaints. It was just like a 3.5. Good book, nothing that special. Next, I wrote a book which I have been meaning and wanting to read for so long. And that is Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. So, basically, here's the thing. I have still not finished ACOTAR, that trilogy. I've only read the first 2. And I still have very little interest in doing that and finishing that series. I just do not care at all. And I always said to myself, I'm not allowed to read Crescent City until I finish that series. It was meant to be a motivation to finish it. Yes, scrap that. The sequel to that, this is coming out really soon, and I want to be in on the hype, and I want to read the sequel when it comes out, when everyone's excited about it, like I missed out on for this one. And so I read it. Bloody glad I did. This was a 5 star. I will link the vlog that I speak a lot more about this in, like as I'm reading it, because I do have like kind of mixed opinions, even though I gave it 5 stars, in that the first half I think was not the best, but the second half was amazing. And the second half wouldn't be that good if the first half didn't do what it did. So like, I feel it's a bit weird, but it's pretty, really good. It's so good. It's so long, but I've never cried so many times in one book. The last few hundred pages had me crying so much. It's so well done. It's so well done. I don't know if it's the length, the format, the writing, I don't know, but it is exceedingly good. In this, I want to be careful with what I say, because I remember someone telling me that the blurb is like really tells you too much. I've not read the blurb. Basically, you're following Bryce and she lives in Crescent City, and it's this place where there's like werewolves and fae and angels and like all these different kinds, and she's like half fae, half human, and things start happening, mysterious happenings occur, and she ends up being paired up with this angel called Hunt, and there's banter and they kind of hate each other, and obviously there's inevitable romance. It's just a good time. You all know what this book is about. I'm the last person on the planet to read it. It's good. I don't want to admit that I've fallen into the Sarah J Maas hype, but I have. It was good. It was a good time. I then read 2 ebooks back to back, the first being Our Stop by Laura Jane Williams. This is just a super fun, like contemporary romance book set in London on the tube, pretty much. So it is these 2 people who, one of whom sees the other on the tube and sends a message into missed connections. And we go through 1,000,001 different things until these people end up meeting and romance ensues. This was a 3.5 for me. It started like heading towards a 4.5 or higher. It started so strong, but it just didn't hold up for me. I'm not gonna say too much why. Again, my vlog that I mentioned this in will be linked, because I do give some mild spoilers, but I won't give it here. I basically have some issues with like how this book was written. I understand the whole point is the missed connection and the failure to meet, and I get that that's the whole point. That's only fun for so long. So as this book went on, I got increasingly frustrated and didn't enjoy it as much. The ending was good, the characters were adorable, I loved the characters, and I had a good time with it, and the ending payoff was great. I just think it could have been done slightly differently, and in my opinion, slightly better. It just hung out for too long. It was stretched out way too long. I read this book in a day, and if I had read it any slower than that, I would have lost interest so many times. So, you know. The next book I read was another ebook romance, and that was The Mistake by Elle Kennedy. This is the second book in the Off-Campus series, the first being The Deal. I loved The Deal when I read it last year, so was very excited to read The Mistake. Only actually picked this up because I was at a train station waiting half an hour for a train, and I was like, oh, you know, may as well kill the time. And later that day I finished it. It's so good. These are really fun books following members of an ice hockey team, and basically these guys meet various girls and each one has their own romance, I'm assuming. They're a freaking fantastic time. They are swoony, they are smutty, they are actually amazingly complex. The thing I really enjoy is I feel like in a lot of romances, you get quite a close look at like the inner turmoil of the women and any like issues or personal things they might be dealing with. And it's often ignored, and the men are just kind of there to either act well or act badly dependent. You get such an interesting look at the men in this series, and I truly enjoy it. I think it's so well done. They're amazing. I cannot wait to read the rest of these books. 5 stars. Amazing. Elle Kennedy is a fantastic romance writer. And then on to the final book I read in January, the 13th book, Golden Boys by Phil Stamper. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you will know I absolutely love Phil Stamper's books. This one was sent to me by, I don't know who the publisher is, Bloomsbury, as part of a Pride Book Tour's book tour happening on Bookstagram in the next few weeks. This was great fun. This is following 4 teenage boys who are all kind of 16, 17-ish, going into their last year of high school. And in the summer before their final year, they are all going off doing different things. One is going to be involved with politics, one is going to help save trees, one is going to Paris for design school, and the other is going to Florida to work and meet some of his family. all really different characters, really differently motivated, and there's a lot of examination and investigation into like the dynamics of this friendship group. They've been super close for a really long time. A lot of things happen within that. All 4 of these boys are queer, which fantastic, love it. This book mentioned COVID, which was a complete mind-blowing moment for me. I kind of forget that books can actually mention COVID now. It's been long enough for books to be published since it was a thing. Wild. But this was a great time. It wasn't particularly special. It came out as I think like a 4-star for me. So it was a good book. It was a fun book. I really enjoyed it. It's not my favourite Phil Stamper. My favourite Phil Stamper is, and I think always will be, As Far As You'll Take Me. But it was a really good time. It's a fantastic YA contemporary with loads of queer representation, really interesting characters, really complex dynamics, loads going on, loads I think for people to relate to. Like I can just imagine queer teenagers picking this book up and like guaranteed you will find something within one of these 4 characters to relate to. And there's so many queer side characters as well. There's just so much going on. It's a great time. I really enjoyed it. I would recommend it. I mean, I would recommend pretty much all of these books. Other than the one I DNF'd, there were not really any books I read that weren't like fun and good. They may not all be favorites, but of course they're not going to be. But they were all just kind of a good time. So there we go. Let me see if I can lift this into view. There we go. Those are all the books I read in January, plus obviously the 2 ebooks. So I just kicked my camera. So obviously a hell of a lot of reading. I am exceedingly chuffed with all of this. It was a good time. January was a very good time. I'm very proud of myself. And yeah, that's kind of it. Hopefully this wrap up wasn't too long. I tried to keep it kind of short and sweet and do some really kind of quick reviews, especially as I think almost all of these books, if not actually all of them, have been reviewed in various vlogs. I think I've had 3 vlogs so far this year, and I'll link them all down below if you want to get more detailed thoughts for any of these. I will list out which books are mentioned in which vlog so you know where to look. But yeah, that's it. Let me know down in the comments how your reading month for January went. Has 2022 started as stupidly well for you as it has for me? Leave this video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you want to see more content from me. Also, links down in the description will be all of my other social media if you want to connect on any other platform. But that is it for this video, so bye, and I'll see you in the next one.